So I had worked at St. Anthony's for 2 years and then was hired to teach English back here at home at Prep.
So after 19 years of working in college admission, to have the opportunity to come to what we used to say this side of the desk and work on the high school side, I was very excited about that. But what I was most excited about was coming home to Prep.
Well, when I returned to the Prep in June of 1979, it really was a homecoming.
It felt like home, you know? When you come back, it feels like you never left the place. So just walking back into Grand and Warren, seeing all your former teachers, and just know that you can breathe finally, like you're back home.
I thought I won the lottery being a student at Prep, right? I wanted nothing more. I couldn't imagine being anywhere else, right? And then it continued.
But I could never have imagined to be at Prep, or to still be at Prep 40 years later when I came here in 1982.
It was a grace journey, right? You know, there was no great design, you know.
When I was elected, appointed, sent by the provincial to be the rector president of St. Peter's Prep, I was surprised, frankly, but honored and very happy to return.
It's almost funny to think about it all these years later, in my 15th year working at Prep, but there was really never any certainty that I would end up back here. It was really just a coincidence that the summer that I graduated college, I was talking with Jim DeAngelo, who had just been appointed principal, and who had taught me video production and been the moderator of the TV studio when I was a student. And he mentioned there was an assistant librarian position open, and I applied almost on a whim, and a few months later, this position opened up as a communications director, and here I am.
Yeah, I never knew that I would be coming full circle back to Prep. It wasn't a plan, just a happen chance. Being requested to come back and help at a retreat led me back to Prep.
I signed a one-year contract in 1974. And I really thought it would be a one-year contract, and then I'd go on to a career in journalism, which was my college major. And somehow I've signed 47 of those contracts.
I worked at a public school for about a year while taking classes at BC. I was told that I would probably have a decent chance at getting a job at that school. And I kind of pivoted and felt this pull, almost like a gravitational pull, to come back to Prep.
Coming back to work at Prep as an alum started out a little awkward.
I think in those initial years, it always feels a little bit strange, right? When you encounter teachers who are now your colleagues. But now I don't have any sense of that anymore. I guess I've been here long enough that I don't feel like people are looking at me like I should have a backpack over my shoulder.
It took me quite a long time to begin calling teachers by their first names. Some I was just never able to do. Carl was never Carl. He was always Mr. D, as I had him as a teacher twice. Jack Casey, eventually I was able to call Jack.
Rich Peters was my English teacher junior and senior year. I definitely wasn't his best student, far from it, but I learned a lot from him and it really prepared me. I owe him a lot, and because of that, that first year was tough. I would always go to him when I'd see him in the morning and greet him with, "Good morning, Mr. Peters," and it was, "Call me Rich." "Good morning, Mr. Peters. How you doing, Mr. Peters?" And at one point he says to me, "Mike, if you don't call me Rich, I won't talk to you."
Doc Kennedy, legend of Prep, sent me to summer school after my sophomore year. Well-deserved, obviously. But I always had this sort of intimidation factor when I was around him. And, I would joke about the fact that he sent me to summer school all the time. And honestly, I don't think he remembered, because it always just rolled off him. And then one day I sat down with him and I said, "Doc, do you remember sending me to summer school?" And he said, "No, I would never do that." And I said, "Well, you did."
It's a great sense of community, and I think that alums working here really adds to that sense of community. We can relate to students in really great ways, and we can relate to each other in really great ways too. So I think it helps build that sense of camaraderie and community.
It develops in a really special way, and I think when I try to connect with students that are here today or young alum, especially young alum who come back to work here, you try to just foster that relationship and, let them know that you were where they are.
A lot is familiar, and certainly when I talk to people that have been around here a while, there's a trip down memory lane all the time, and talking to alums, fellow alums and such. And I miss some people that have retired for sure, but it's still a place that it gives me a sense of duty.
I know for a fact I would not be the man that I am today if it wasn't for those 4 years at Prep. So it's really easy for me to kind of jump back here and try to at least give a little portion of that back.
So to be here now and to help our boys on their college search journey really means a lot to me.
I grew up in Jersey City in the Greenville section, went to St. Paul's Grammar School, and along with 25 other members of our 8th grade class, we attended the Prep. It was 4 great years. I was very involved in sports, the school paper. I was very honored to be a member of the Greek honors class. We have friendships that have lasted a lifetime.
Each and every day, I try to motivate the kids. Be the man for others, right? Strive for the majors. That's always what I tell my kids every day in Browning Center.
Whatever influence I have, you hope it's for good. And there's always a mutuality to this, right? My time in the classroom with students and on the soccer field, they were life-giving times, right? I learned more about myself. I learned about relationships. I learned about teaching and coaching. I learned about the goodness of adolescent boys, right? We one constant of Prep through the years, and then adolescence can be complicated, but one constant is we've had great kids. Right, we're great kids.
That essence of cura personalis, a great teacher is not just one who conveys content knowledge or techniques or skills. There's got to be life lessons. In order to give life lessons, you have to share some of yourself, share some of what you're doing in life, share your passions in life. And I think the greatest teachers are those who are able to share their passions outside of education, outside of their discipline. Their humanity, in essence, that's what it is. And it's a daunting task to form these young men that way.
That poll really was just the experience that I had at St. Peter's and wanting not necessarily to replicate that for kids, but to give back because so much was given to me at a place like St. Peter's.
Just seeing like all these Prep graduates walking through the hallways and trying to help mentor these kids and being the best students they could be has been nothing but inspirational.
And the education, even in the toughest of times here at Prep, way back when, the educational just opening up of our minds for the beginning of our lives was just life-changing. And I so want that to continue for the students at Prep today. Just an unbelievable experience.
I think perhaps one of the most influential adults in my life during my time here in the mid-1980s was Father Ray Balduff, our Jesuit priest who was the director of college placement at the time. He would perch himself in the lobby of Mullery every day outside of his office and talk to us as we were going by and ask about the students' college interests and so on. And so, he modeled for me, a very engaged approach towards helping Prep students discern their college process. In fact, I have his picture on my desk, so I think of him frequently, and I'd like to think that not only is he guiding me to a certain extent in terms of doing my job, but that he's maybe smiling down on the work that we do here at Prep today.
I always tell people that the best job at Prep is the alumni director role. There's so much fun that comes with it, but the most important thing that I get to take away is the opportunity to learn more and more about what made this place the place it is, what made it so special, and really who inspired the people that inspired me, giving me an opportunity to inspire the rest of the folks who are going to enter these halls and leave it one day. So it's been a really emotional and crazy but fun, enriching, rewarding experience for me.
I heard that when it was announced over the PA system that June that I was coming as the new rector president, Bob Howard, whom I had for geometry in sophomore year, ran down to the registrar's office to see what my geometry grades were. He wanted to make sure I did okay by him.
To be here and to have individuals who were very important to me in my own prep experience be my colleagues now. Father Tony Azzardo was in the guidance department with me. Father John Mullen, right? And of course the great Jim Dondero.
Father John Mullen, who had that connection when I was a student. He was one of my teachers in both junior and senior year. And then having him here as when I was back as principal, was just a great comfort. Father Tony Azzardo was always there, was always an open door, and a great companion, someone who listened and also understood.
And then to be able to work, right? To be able to be a colleague of, Carl DiLorenzo or Walter Kozik or Jack Casey or Bob McGinnis, these are just gifts, right? Having Jim Horan as a young teacher, having Carl as a young teacher, working with Rich Kennedy and Jack Campion, and then being Fran, right? I'm not sure being Fran ever warmed to me, right? They didn't quite know what to do with me, but they were gifts to the place.
And it was certainly surreal coming back as barely a 25-year-old and then sitting with teachers that I had idolized for so long. And I was in the English department, chock full of legends. Well, Kozik, Jack Casey, Jack Campion, Rich Kennedy, Rick Raleigh. So quite intimidating. But it was also an interesting peek behind the curtain, if you will, to see what happens in the faculty room.
After working at Prep for a number of years, that relationship with former teachers really starts to develop. And you almost see their personalities come through in a different way, almost always very positive, but it becomes very enjoyable to work with people that you knew and helped you grow and develop as a person. Sometimes you don't always have the answers to the translations that the principal talks to you when he talks to you in German. But you smile and you remember the great times that you had learning from him.
It was just delightful to be back. I had Charlie Rooney. I had him in freshman year for algebra. I had Bob Howard. Milt Berkowitz was working in the school then. Bill Cochran was still a football coach. Bill Gargiulo, the assistant football coach. Bill Cochran was the baseball coach. So I have been involved in those teams, and it was nice to be able to chat with him and share a lot of memories. They were very complimentary and excited, saying, well, you finally made it someplace to the right place. It's good to have you here.
It has been this profound witness and invitation into God's goodness. And that has been very real from my first day there to the present moment.
Prep is such a part of my life that I don't pretend to be objective about it. It's an extraordinary, extraordinary place. I met my wife at a prep dance. My two brothers-in-law went to prep. I've seen so many of my former students go on to great things. I grew as an individual through being in the classroom, having great colleagues.
When I think about all the gifts that prep gave me as a student, in terms of academics, in terms of the people that I met here, and really discovering the person that I wanted to be and the things that I was passionate about, it's tempting in some way to look at this phase of my prep life as being about somehow giving back. But that doesn't really paint a complete picture, because the gifts continue to flow in this direction too. It's just a terrific pride of being a part of the work that goes on here every day. Mike Mercia and I are often at odds about who has, what we call the easiest job at prep, or the best job at prep. He as alumni director, or myself as communications director. But, my colleagues here give me these great stories to tell by the work they do. And, I get to talk about prep pretty much endlessly, which is something that I would do even if I wasn't getting paid for it. So certainly the gifts that flow from prep towards me have really never stopped.
All my experiences at prep, from my days as a student to my days coaching, to faculty member, to principal, to trustee, and for most of those years, right, as an alum, prep has always invited me to be my best self, and has equipped me with the skills and the gifts to be so. I don't know that I explicitly or specifically asked for any of it. Some of it I hoped for, but really nothing but gratitude. Songs can be hokey, right? Or, and I remember one of the things I take as a source of pride is Pride and Glory. Nobody sang it during my days as a student. It didn't exist. When I got back at principal, we were going to sing that damn song. We were all going to sing it, as you remember, and sing it we did, right? And I I tolerated your inversion, you and your friends. It's a story of sadness with no shadow of gladness. But those lines ring true. The gifts you have given, we shall never forget. The gifts prep has given me, I'll never forget.